What is the good word, my party people? It is Woodrow, and it is time again for some previews talk. You see before you the DC, Marvel, and main previews for the month of June. And as I told my boos, Vince and David, when these arrived last week, it is going to be a big month for me, it seems. Thanks mainly to a bunch of interesting stuff in the back of previews, which you all know by now are the non-major publishers, the independent publishers, if you will. So get yourselves a cocktail, maybe a snack, sit back, relax, and come along with me for this next 20-30 minutes as I take you through all the things that I am so excited about. I want to share it with you. All right, it's time to jump in. I have decided to switch it up this month. I'm going to focus 100% on the main catalog. This is not to say that there aren't Marvel and DC books I'm excited about. As always, I will make sure to post on Patreon my complete DCB service monthly order, and you'll see quite a few big two books there. But this month, because there's so many non-major publisher things that I think are worth your attention, I'm going to switch it up and just focus on that stuff. So let's have at it. Okay, starting us off in the image section on page 38 and 39 and 40 and 41 is Coffin Bound #1, written by Dan Waters with art by Danny, D-A-N-I. Now, I had the good fortune of meeting Danny, at least an internet meeting, if you will, through our mutual friend Paolo Belfiore at Cadence Comic Art. Paolo had turned me on to Danny's artwork on Instagram, and that subsequently led to me getting a fantastic commission of Domino from her. So I followed her online for a long time, and I'm very excited to see her make her major comics sequential debut. And Image is smart because since I'm imagining quite a few people don't know her work yet, they provided multiple pages of interior art from the first issue, and I think you'll agree that she definitely has chops. So give this one a try if you're wondering what it's about. It's chased by an unstoppable killer. Our heroine, Izzy Tyburn, has decided that if the world won't have her in it, it can have nothing at all. She's retreading her life, leaving nothing but burned rubber, ash, and sun-scorched bones of those who get in her way. So it even says down here in a little interstitial, if you like the grindhouse vibes of Bitch Planet and the high-stakes action of Tokyo Ghost, you'll love Coffin Bound. On page 46 and 47, sticking in the Image Comics section, we have an original graphic novel, and I may be butchering this name, but here we go. I believe it's pronounced Ophiuchus. And it is written by Ali Lerigière de la Plante and Natasha Tara Petrovich, with art by Natasha Tara Petrovich. And it is, as I mentioned, an original graphic novel. It's the story of a lone sentry of an ancient, inactive gate. One day, a strange being breaks through and infects her with a virus, and shortly after, she is approached by two machines who implore her to follow them to the center of the universe to put an end to that virus, a malevolent being, which rots all worlds. So this, what really captured me here is the visuals. It's not like anything we see very often in comics. It almost looks computer generated, and it may well be for all I know. Block lettering, but there's more pages. But I like the idea. You guys know that I'm a fan of dystopian or revolutionary stories, and that's what this is. So I'm going to take the leap on this, even though they're creators that I have no prior history with. Okay, jumping into the Dark Horse section on page 90, it wouldn't be a previews month without talking in some way about Mr. Jeff Lemire. And in this case, we have not one but two glorious collected editions from his Black Hammer universe. At the top, we have Black Hammer Streets of Spiral, which is written by Jeff, of course, with art by Ray Fawkes and Matt Kint and Nate Powell and Emmy Lennox and Mike Allred and David Rubin and Tyler Crook. This is the mishmash trade. It's the trade that's collecting all the one-shots that have been floating around the last few years with the world. So you've got your giant-sized annual, your Cthulhuese, your World of Black Hammer, your Free Comic Book Day. So fun stuff. I have all these issues, but can never have enough shelf porn when it comes to Lemire. And then at the bottom here we have Black Hammer 45 from the World of Black Hammer, written by Jeff Lemire and Ray Fawkes with art by Matt and Charlene Kint. This is the ongoing miniseries collecting 1 through 4, which looks at the World War II period of the Black Hammer universe. And it's been fantastic. Okay, on page 94 of the Dark Horse is Our Encounters with Evil, Adventures of Professor J.T. Meinhardt and his assistant, Mr. Knox. So, probably 2 years ago, both Vince and I read and gushed over Mr. Higgins Comes Home, which is a Mignola supernatural series, but it is not part of the Hellboy Mignolaverse. And it was a very, very fun series with, in no small part, due to the very unique line work of Warwick Johnson Cadwell. And this is a sequel to that, which I wasn't sure we'd ever get. So 100% on board this, as I'm sure Vince is, as a reminder of the kinds of goodness you can expect from Cadwell. It's got a very European vibe, but I presume that this will just pick up where we left off, and it'll be about vampire hunting and werewolves and all that good stuff. So this is fun stuff, and the thing I really like about it is I think a lot of us out there are huge Mignola fans, but it's just daunting to jump into BPRD or Hellboy because there's just so much of it if you're not keeping up. And I like these books and books like Baltimore where you can just jump in and read them without having to worry about decades now of prior history. Okay, sticking in Dark Horse, this time in the Burger Books section, Tommy Gun Wizards, number 1 of 4, written by Christian Ward, with art by Sammy Kivella, colors by Dean Cuniff, with our good friend Declan Shalvey on covers. This is neat. This is a story set in the period of the mob and Elliot Ness and Al Capone, and it says, except in this world, Al Capone isn't dealing in alcohol but in magic. With lick, a drug that grants magical powers to anyone who ingests it, mobsters become wizards, ordinary men become monsters, and darker secrets than Elliot Ness can imagine lie at the heart of it all. Sounds like a fun mashup of magic and fantasy with a mobster book, so not sure I've read that before, and it's 4 issues, so why not? Christian Ward is a very, very creative chap, and hell of an artist too, so it'd be interesting to see how he does as a writer. Now we're going to jump ahead to the IDW section, and this is a book that knocked me on my ass when I saw it solicited because it warms my heart to be able to tell you all about a book by our friend Ryan Lee. We met Ryan, probably a decade ago on the con circuit, and he does incredible commissions and is a righteous dude. But he has admittedly not done a ton of published interior work. He did some Archer and Armstrong for Valiant a few years ago, but he hasn't done consistently. He hasn't gotten consistent work, but hopefully this is the start of a second phase of his career because he certainly has the talent to be doing amazing work each and every month. And this is Mountainhead number 1 of 5, written by John Lees with art by Ryan Lee. And it is a story of a father and son named Abraham and Noah, and they're roaming like nomads in America, convinced that the government is after them. And they end up in a collision course with a lone survivor of a climbing expedition in a small Canadian resort town called Berwick. And it looks like it's just bloody and wild. And the thing about Ryan is there's really nothing he can't draw. If you ever get a chance to get a commission from him, the more creative you can be, the better. He lives for that stuff. So I am super stoked for this book, both on a personal level and because I think the solicit makes it sound righteous in its own doing. Stop the presses. I know the world is going to come to an end because you're looking at it This month I am going to recommend to you a book by Dynamite, and not only a book by Dynamite, but one of their public domain Project Superpowers books. Shocking, I know. But there you have it. On page 176, we have The Death-Defying Devil #1 of 5. So what caught my eye? Well, very simply, the same thing that they give you in the bold here. Gail Simone. I love Gail Simone. I think she's doing excellent work. She just did my girl Domino very proud over at Marvel, and I think the combination of Gail writing with Walter Giovanni on art makes me willing to take the leap into a Project Superpowers book. What is the world coming to? I don't know if Vince is going to watch this video, but if he doesn't, I can't wait to read this book and then surprise him with it in a few months' time. Up next on pages 216 and 17 in the Boom section is Bury the Lead, the original graphic novel, written by Gabby Dunn with illustration by Claire Rowe. It's a 128-page OGN. And fun fact on this, you'll notice they spell lead L-E-D-E. So I have to admit, it was a long time into adulthood before I realized that it's not Bury the L-E-A-D, but it is in fact Bury the L-E-D-E. So that is spelled correctly for those of you wondering. In any event, this is a crime book, and it involves a up-and-coming young reporter named Madison Jackson, and she's like anyone early in their careers trying to do anything she can to make a name for herself. And she comes to the scene of a brutal murder of a socialite is found covered in blood. Her name is Dahlia Kennedy. She is presumed to be the suspect of murdering her husband and child. And there's a game of cat and mouse, per the solicit, that starts happening between Madison and Dahlia because Dahlia will only speak to Madison about what she knows. So looks like a little bit of a crime thriller, and I'm on board for that. I don't know much about either creator, but as we're wont to do, we do get some solicit art to sell you on. And as you can see, I think we've got some very tight classic line work. So I think it's worth the leap. Okay, on page 248 in the Aftershock Comics segment, we have Bad Reception #1, written and drawn by Juan Doe. This just looks like escapist fun. Your mileage may vary. This is going to be a very graphic, violent comic, so keep that in mind. But the premise is a simple one. A lot of people have been invited to a celebrity wedding in a remote location, and as a result of being a celebrity wedding, they've taken the initiative of like no technology, no Wi-Fi, cell phones, anything. And as a result, they have left themselves sitting ducks for a murderer who single-handedly takes them out one by one, branding them with a hashtag. This is the same kind of thing we would have seen in, about 100 different 80s slasher flicks that I would have rented at the video store as a kid. So it's right up my alley. I know Juan Doe is an age contemporary of mine, so I would imagine that's what he's going for here. His artwork is perfect for this kind of setting, and it should be just some gory escapist fun. All right, on page 258 in the Ad House Books section, shout out to our good buddy Chris Pitzer, we have Jeremiah, the graphic novel by Kathy Johnson. It's a foreboding story of a teenager who struggles with self-discovery, and those self-discovery struggles may bring an end to the world. It's a watercolor and ink graphic novel, 160 pages, and explores the conflict between the physical and the inexplicable, asking questions about faith, adolescence, and sexuality. So I don't know much about this book, but I do know that it's an Ad House book, and that is enough for me because Chris is pretty much batting 1,000 with me over the years, particularly when he finds graphic novels to bring before us. I should do a quick mention for, they're also putting out Second Coming #2. Is on this page, which is by Ahoy Comics. We talked about the first issue last month, but since you're seeing it, I might as well give it a shout out because that's worth your attention too. On page 302 in the Drawn and Quarterly section, we have Creation, the graphic novel. It's for mature readers. It's 192 pages, small size format, 7 by 9, black and white, and It says, a new mother takes us on a tour of Hamilton, a Rust Belt city born of the Industrial Revolution and dying a slow death due to globalization. This mother represents the city's next wave of inhabitants, the artists and young parents who swarm a rundown area for its affordability, inevitably reshaping the neighborhood that they take over. Creation looks at gentrification from the inside out, an artist mother making a home and neighborhood for her family, struggling to find her place amid the existing and emerging communities. It sounds unique. Drawn and Quarterly does great work, and I know it just caught my attention. If you've been up to date on the show, you know I've just really been enjoying independent graphic novels more than anything of late. So my radar is just up at its highest point looking for that kind of stuff right now. Okay, on page 311, shout out to Peanut, beat that thing. We have 2 books from Fantagraphics. At the top here you have Press Enter to Continue by Anna Guyven. They had me at the mention of like a candy-colored Black Mirror episode. I'm all for it. So Anna Galvin is a Spanish cartoonist, and this is her English language debut per Fanta. And it utilizes fluorescent colors to create a series of short stories that intertwine and explore the dehumanizing effects of contemporary society. Sounds timely, sounds poignant, and it's an anthology. You all know I'm a sucker for a good anthology. Speaking of anthologies, sticking with Fantagraphics, right below it, we have the Anthology of Mind by Tommy Musturi. This is an anthology of short stories that looks at the work of the many cartoonists, but it's actually that of Finnish cartoonist Tommy Musturi. It's a tour de force of stylistic exploration. So basically what you're getting here is a anthology style book where as you read it, each story looks like it's an entirely differently drawn and written creation, but they are all written and drawn by Tommy Musturi. So it sounds like they are showing off their artistic chops, and I just can't wait to set eyes on this thing. Where would we be without some Lion Forge to talk about? On page 330, as well as 331, there's a letter from the creator on 331, but this is No Ivy League, a graphic novel, 6x9, 216 pages, written and drawn by Hazel Newlevant. And this is autobiographical. Hazel takes a look back when she was 17, and she was taking a summer job clearing ivy from the forest in Portland, Oregon, to earn some extra cash to go to concerts. She was affluent, and she ends up, because of her summer work, realizing that there's a lot about the world she doesn't know and understand. And it's as by her own words, this uncomfortable and compelling memoir is an important story of a teen's awakening to the racial insularity of the upper class, the power of white privilege, and the hidden history of segregation in Portland. She gives you a much longer explanation here about what prompted her to write this, but I'm intrigued. I think it's important work, and especially in today's day and age. So kudos to Lion Forge for dropping this one on us. We're going to stay in Lion Forge. On page 335, we have Stay, which is in the Magnetic Collection, which you all know as the place that has brought us Infinity 8. And not surprisingly, the writer of Infinity 8, Louis Trondheim, is the writer of this book, Stay. The artist is Hubert Chevillard. As solicited, Roland has planned the perfect vacation for Fabienne to discuss their future. But when unimaginable tragedy strikes, Fabienne is left alone to process this immediate and unexpected change in her life. While most people would abandon the trip out of grief, she decides to stay. Trondheim, with what he's done through Infinity 8, is a must-try for me. This is a quite different book, right, than sci-fi exploitation work, but I've so much enjoyed what he's done in that book. I'm going to give this a try. It sounds like a very gut-wrenching, morose, almost spiritual journey that deals with life and death, and it's exactly the kind of thing I'm looking to read these days. On page 341 by No Brow, we have Kingdom, the graphic novel by John McNaught. This is a book that caught my attention and then completely unrelated, after I'd already highlighted it to talk to you all about, our good friend Tony Esmond, who you all may remember was on the show a couple years back after New York Comic Con, one of our British buddies. He now works at No Brow, and he reached out to me to tell me that he thought I would love this book. And so that was a bit of cherry on top, because I told him I was already planning on ordering it. But as solicited, it says, Kingdom forges a story in the parts of a vacation that we like to forget. The arguments, the poor weather, the moments of quiet solitude. A family sets off for a long weekend at a campground next to the ocean. We follow them through the familiar landscapes of a summer break, gas stations, windset cliffs, dilapidated museums, and tourist gift shops. I know it sounds mundane, but sometimes there's great beauty in the mundane, particularly in semi or autobiographical comics. And I don't know, this just resonated with me because I've had quite a few family vacations as a child and then now as a parent. And look, they're right. Sometimes it doesn't go according to plan. Sometimes there's stuff that we thankfully forget all about. And I always joke with my wife that when we're on vacation, a lot of times it seems like our kids, particularly our oldest, have horrible, horrible times. And then, like, we'll be home for 2 weeks, and our kid will say something like, "Oh, that was the best trip ever." So this definitely resonates, the idea that we only remember the good parts of trips. I'm on board for this. And I although there isn't any interior art shown here in the solicit, Tony was kind enough to share with me some of the interior pages, and they are fantastic. So you will not go wrong giving this one a try. And my last choice of the month, on page 366 in the Titan Comics section, we have Snowpiercer Extinction, the hardcover, written by Motz with art by Jean-Marc Rocher. This is something I never thought that we would get. First of all, shout out to our good friend Hassan, because a few years ago, after the Snowpiercer movie came out, Hassan sent me as a present the 3 graphic novels that were originally French and they were then subsequently translated to English, that the movie was based on, and I enjoyed them very much, particularly the first 2. But the creator passed away, and so after much time has passed, we get a prequel that sets up how the train comes to be and how the world comes to an end. So, yeah, this looks awesome. I'm a huge fan of the setting. I'm a big fan of Mr. Rocher's art. And like I said, this is a super pleasant surprise to see this. And I guess apparently this is all being turned into a TV show on TNT, which probably explains the timing. But who really cares why we're getting it? I'm just excited that we're getting it. So, once again, it's Snowpiercer Extinction by Titan Comics. Okay, there you have it. That is all I've got for you this month. Remember, no DC and no Marvel on the video, but there are plenty of goodies from the big 2 that I'll be ordering and enjoying, and as I'm sure you will as well, including this right here, Wildcats. I'm sure Vince is going to talk about this to no end. I will say, as much as I'm excited about it, when I saw the cover of previews, I thought for a second that Jim Chung was going to be drawing the book too. He's going to be doing covers. It's going to be Ramon Villalobos doing the interiors. Very, very different style. I like Ramon's work, but it's in stark contrast to Jim's style, so caveat emptor there. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video romp through more indie OGN focused stuff. And as always, thank you all so much for your support. I don't know how I can properly convey how much it means to us, but it means a ton. And as always, please let me know either on the Patreon or in the Facebook group or on the Twitters or as a DM or any other way. Hell, Semaphore and Smoke Signal work too. What y'all think of my choices and what maybe you think I might have missed and what you're most excited about ordering this month. So in the meantime, enjoy the rest of your month. You know where to find me, and I sure as heck know where to find you. Much love.